Good morning, Quilting with Harriet here. I'm going to be loading a customer quilt this morning with my red snappers, so I want to take you along. Let me go to the back of the machine and show you how I get started. I love my red snappers, no pinning at all. First thing I do is lay out my quilt backing, and if you can see, there's a seam right here that's going parallel to my bars. The reason you want to do that is when you roll your quilt, everything stays nice and even with the bars. If your pattern is directional, if your backing fabric is directional and you have to load the seam going vertically, you're going to get a buildup as your quilt is rolling on the rails. You're going to get that seam building up in the middle. You're going to see a little bit of drag on the side, a little bit of dropping fullness on the sides. So you want to make sure that you watch that and you clamp it really well. I really like to have my seams going parallel to the bars. Okay, so the first thing I do is I lay out my backing and I put my red snappers on and see how many I'm going to need. So I've got 1 and 2 here, and I know I have plenty to load my quilt on the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my backing fabric and I'm going to bring it under the idler bar. Okay, you can see the idler bar there. And then I'm going to bring it to the top. And what this does is it lets me rest my fabric on top of the bar so that I don't have to be reaching with my hands, bending my back. Now I can stand up nice and straight. All right, so I'll bring that to the top. My red snapper is in my leader here. That stays in there all the time. I've got about 1 inch overhang so that I have enough to clamp on. I make sure that I'm nice and even all the way down, because when I roll the quilt, I want my seam to stay straight. Okay, now I take my snapper, and if yours are brand new, they will bend and this channel will open up so it's easier for you to get it snapped on. Mine are a little bit used, so I can just take my snapper, use my pole. I'm just holding my hand under my pole. And here we go. That one's totally loaded. Okay, now you see the idler bar is still visible. This has to be visible the entire time you're quilting. So all I do now is drop this down, and you can see that this bar is going to stay. And if I roll it up, I can still see that bar, and my quilt back lays nice and flat. So as I roll, I'm watching this seam here, that it's staying nice and straight. And sometimes I do it from the bottom up, and sometimes I do it from the top down. It doesn't matter. This way I can see if there's any wrinkles, and if I need to get them out, I'll just use a little spray bottle, spritz that wrinkle, and then I can get that wrinkle out without taking it to the ironing board. So I roll my quilt up all the way to the top, and I'm checking and making sure that everything is straight. There's another seam. That looks pretty good. Now I have 2 handles on my frame, and I'll bring you over there so you can see. Okay, here we go. Right here. I have 2 handles. I have one at the top and one here at the bottom, so I can stand on the side and I can roll my quilt. And if I see any imperfections, any wrinkles coming out, I can just give this a little tug here. I'll walk down here. All right, now I got it straightened out again. I'll come back to my handlebars over here. All right, now I'm going to leave a little bit hanging off because that's what I need to clamp on to the bottom leader. So I'm just going to get this out of the way for a second. And I'm going to take my bottom leader that has the pole, the dowel in here, and I'm going to take it and flip it over my quilt top pole. So I'm going to get that straightened out. Okay, now you can see here's my bottom leader for the backing. Here's my dowel. Okay, now I'm going to take my quilt top. And you always want to make sure that your backing and your batting are at least 6 inches larger than your quilt top. So if your quilt top is 80 by 90, you want 86 by 96. Because that's where you're going to test your tension, that's where your clamps are going to go. All right, now, I don't use the markings on my leader. I don't measure from the center out. I'm looking for the quilt to be perfectly straight. So what I'm looking for is it's not going like this. I'm looking for it to be nice and straight and for it to be consistent all the way through. And once I find that, I'm going to take my other snappers now for the bottom, which are down here, and I'm going to clamp this one. So I'm using my frame again, using my pole, and I'm just snapping this in here. So I'm taking my hand, putting it under my pole, and using the palm of my hand to snap. And there you have it. My quilt backing is loaded. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it back to the beginning. So we'll bring you over here to my two handles. If you don't have your second handle on your frame, I highly recommend it. So I'll show you how this rolls. I'm going to pick up my bar, the quilt top bar, put it on my pole cradle here, my pole cradle. See, this comes down. I can rest it up here, so now my leader's not going to turn as I'm rolling my quilt. And there you go. I am loaded, my backing, and I'm ready to put on my quilt top. All right, so now the quilt top, I'm going to take it. Now I don't have a snapper on the bar for the quilt top, and the reason is if you don't get this perfectly straight when you're loading it under the snapper, because sometimes maybe you'll have a little bit here and not as much here, you're going to quilt in a wonky seam, because when it rolls, it's not going to roll straight, and as you're quilting, that's going to show in your quilting. So what I like to do is, this is the top, this is my bar for my quilt top. I'm just going to roll it out, straighten it out, there we go, and now I'm going to load my quilt top by pinning it. This is the only time I'll use pins on my frame. So I have my magnetic holder here, and I just start. Again, I didn't use the markings in the center of my leader. I see that I have enough room here and enough room on this side to clamp and test my tension. And then I start pinning from the center out. wasn't the center. Okay, center. I put my pins fairly close, head to tail, so I don't want any inconsistencies when I roll. So if the pins aren't close together, you're going to get this when you roll, and then you're going to get that all the way up. So we want our pins to be close together, head to tail, like that. I'll use the white ones so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so we learned how to load with red snappers and pins. Make sure that your backing and your batting are at least 6 inches larger than your quilt top. You'll be glad you did when you have to test your tension and have it hold on. So I'm going to do an edge to edge on this quilt. Not sure what color thread I'm going to use. Maybe a very dark gray, or I don't think I want black. I don't want to see the black in the orange. I don't want to. Maybe I'll use a clear thread. Maybe I'll use a monopoly. I'll have to see. Just ponder that for a minute. If you have any comments on that, please leave them below. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe so you know if there's more, when there's more videos coming. I am going to do lots of videos coming up in the future here. I think I've got everything where I need it to be. I am a retired Handi quilter educator of 16 years. I've been out on the road, traveling the country, teaching people how to use these machines. They come to shops and we set up machines and do hands-on classes. I retired as of September 1st. I've been to Europe. I've been all over the States. I just thought it was time to stay home for a little while, and then I decided to do this because I really do miss teaching. So if you have anything that you would like to see me do, let me know. The next thing, the next video I think I'm going to do is when I test my tension, because I know that everybody really has, that's the dreaded part of quilting, isn't it? I don't know if you can see it on my wall over here. Let me go get that for you. But I've had this sign for a very long time. Clean the dust off. This is my favorite saying. My long arm is my friend and my enemy. There's days when the gremlins show up and I don't even try and figure out why things happen. I just fix it and I go on and I enjoy the process. Okay, so now I'm rolling my quilt and I want to make sure that the quilt rolls straight here and here. So as I'm rolling my quilt, I'm holding it out a little bit, straightening it up here, fixing it over here if I need to. And what I'm looking for as I'm rolling my quilt is I want to make sure that my seams are staying nice and straight. I don't want to see my seams riding up. That means I'm not rolling it straight. This is a hard one to check because all the blocks are offset and they're not in a straight line. But what a pretty quilt this is. I've been quilting for people for 20 years. 20 years. It's a long time. And I still love every quilt that comes into my house. Love, love, love the process. So if I can help you on your journey, that's awesome. If you have suggestions for future videos, leave a comment below. Make sure you hit the like button. YouTube likes to see the likes on their channels. And subscribe and make sure that you hit notifications so that you know when I'm doing some more videos. Okay, all right, I am loaded and now it's time to cut my batting, which is in the closet here. So this is my studio I built on about 10 years ago. This is my design wall, things that I'm working on. When I open up my closet, there's my batting. And I'm just going to pull it out. I get a tape measure and it's my beautiful batting scissors. These are awesome. So I measure how wide the quilt is, and I measure my batting, and then I cut them with my batting scissors. These are amazing, amazing. So that's loading the quilt with the red snappers and pinning on the quilt top. I will be back to show you how I test my tension. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button on the way out. Bye.